Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate, the League One podcast. I'm delighted to be joined by my co-host, Jake Tonge from Channel 72 and that League One podcast. How are you, Jake?
I'm good, Gab. I've just scanned a cookie as quickly as I could from the meeting room into now. But no, I'm good, mate. Looking forward to...
Okay, you can have a proper dinner afterwards then.
I've had a proper dinner from HelloFresh and I thought it was awful, mate. But, it's one of them. But no, looking forward
well,
to...
the good news is we've got a lovely podcast to lift you. Starting with Neill Rees from the Tilehurst end, otherwise known as Bobbins. Great to have you on, Neill. Thanks so much for joining us. I suppose there's been a lot going on for Reading, sort of on and off the pitch, and I just wondered how close is the club to the fundamental change upstairs that it's crying out for?
Oh God, I wish we knew. I mean, it's such a situation at the moment where we don't even know where the players and staff get paid each month. It's so hand to mouth. The owner is basically just phoning it in now. He doesn't pay the HMRC tax anymore. That's just kind of gone. So any information that comes out of the club is scant or low. You can kind of tell there's a bit more dissension in the ranks now. They're kind of a little bit more free with what they say rather than kind of towing the company line, which was nothing.
Right.
So there's rumours kicking around of various bits and bobs.
Is that, if you don't mind me jumping in there, Neil, is
Sure.
that possibly one of the silver linings of the fact that it's got to this stage where the players don't know whether they're going to be paid, where they don't feel obliged to hold the company line, and actually there is maybe more freedom of information perhaps than there must have been earlier in this process?
Yeah, to a point. But I think that, just like any of us, if we didn't know whether we were going to be paid at the end of the month, end of the week, then you've got that tension to start off with. And it's reflecting in results, no doubt about it. And, when Celes is asked, is the rumors true that there is a takeover in the offing? He doesn't know. He hasn't got a clue. He hasn't got a line to the owner anymore. When he was appointed, he said he had a few conversations with him, and that was pretty much as far as it's been. For the last 2 months, maybe 3. Like, nobody's heard from him at all. All he does is pay money into the account for the wages, and that's that. The CEO, Young Pang, hasn't been seen since May, allegedly. Although as a CEO, he was basically just Young's puppet anyway. He just did what he was told, and doesn't have a singular unique thought in his head, which is not what you want from a CEO and ownership partnership.
It's not ideal, is it?
No, it's not. So, yeah, we've had whispers that there's 2 or 3 parties, one possibly that are doing EFL checks, but they're just whispers. There's nothing concrete. And with the new EFL rules, in that they're all under NDA, and they can't announce anything. Even as a veiled rumor, they can't do that. So we'll find out when everyone else does.
I suppose the one plus point for Reading on the pitch has been the potential you've shown in the EFL Trophy, because you won 9-0 at Exeter and 5-0 at Swindon, and there's probably a few theories as to why this is. Probably because certainly in the case of the Swindon game, you're facing 16, 17-year-old with probably your backup players. So and in the makeup of the Reading squad seems to be that there's actually quite a narrow gap in quality between first choice and second choice players. But does that give you any sort of encouragement that you can turn your league form around?
Kind of yeah and no. It's as you say, it's a fine band between those players. There's not really too much gapping, I suppose, between the 21s and the first team, because the first team is a lot of 21s anyway, with a few experienced pros thrown in. And I think they all, they all train to the same ethos that Sellers wants to show, which is 4-2-2-2. Which like nobody else really plays. So it's such a hard thing to learn, I would imagine, because you haven't really got any reference points, not at a respective level anyway. So I think that, for the younger players, they're easily moldable. And I think for like the EFL trophy, they've shown that they can adapt and be a little bit smarter than the teams that are younger in age than them. That said, Exeter were marginally older than us, but a smidge here and there. But Exeter's trajectory has gone off a cliff lately. I don't know if we were a part of that or it was happened beforehand. I don't think so. But Swindon, I think they played a lot of 17s last night, and we for once we showed we were more physical than they were, and they couldn't really compete. It took them 30 minutes to get even in our box, which for us this season is quite an achievement. Whether they can do that step up to League One, it initially for a side that we came down from the Championship, you don't think there's too much difference between an EFL trophy side and your 21s. They kind of like should be like for like, but it's massive. So it seems. And again, that jump from 21s where we have most of our players into League One is vast. The physicality in League One can't be underestimated, and our kids haven't got that, and they haven't got the experience to say, well, this is what I need to do in certain situations to counter that. And also, it doesn't help in a way that Sellers is using a new formation that no one's got reference points against. They can't say, well, look at this team, they're doing it. Look how you can adapt your game. No one's got that, so they're learning off the cuff all the time, and it's hard. It's really hard for them.
Sure. I'm really a few weeks ago we were talking about Reading in terms of this exciting young side that was developing some real prospects for the future, and that even if you weren't in a place to challenge for promotion this season, there was some foundations there that you could take into the next ownership regime. But I guess not having that mix of sort of peak age players to sort of rely on has been a big part in why you find yourself currently in the bottom four.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have a pre-season at all. I mean, Sellers was employed sort of early to mid-July. We also under embargo as well, so any players that we got in were frees or imaginative signings like Charlie Savage and Ben Elliott. So it's it's getting to the point now where they're fit enough. It's just whether they can be clever enough with the system to adapt to the physicality. And at the moment, we're just being slaughtered on the flanks because, as you can imagine, with three banks of two, it's really narrow. So it doesn't take a genius to say, use your wingers, attack your left back or your right back, get crosses in the box where your big guys can bully our central defenders who are like 20 and 21 or younger. And voila.
It puts a lot of pressure on the fullbacks, I suppose, in those 1v1
massively.
Yeah.
And then if you're thinking about that kind of system, then your two wingers, if you like, that are like 10s, have to come back and supplement the fullbacks. So it looks like a 4-4-2, but Sellers likes to press. So where those players gonna go? It's either like, am I attacking or am I defending? What do you want me to be? And they haven't got the experience to know what that system should be doing.
I mean, I do want to bring in our regular Matt Farley in a moment, but I just want to finish the conversation on Reading with you, Neill, because I'm really intrigued about whether this period is going to test Ruben Sellers' adaptability, because clearly we've reached a stage where, as much as it's admirable that he's tried to stamp a clear playing identity and formation and system, which so many fans want on this team, it's leaving you with very clear vulnerabilities, and the trade-off isn't proving to be worth it. So can Ruben Sellers, even though he's got this long-term sort of vision and philosophy as to what he wants, he's got to adapt and try and find a system that makes it work?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's in fans forum meetings with him, and even prior to that, he was steadfast in saying, this is my system, this is my philosophy, this is it. And then over the last couple of weeks, he sort of said, well, we've got to kind of back up as a 3-5-2 as well. And it's like, okay. So there is a little bit of that creeping in. But then at the weekend, when we lost to Leyton Orient in the last minute yet again, the system was kind of laid bare. So you're going to thought, okay, is he going to mix it up for the EFL game, where we're playing, younger players from Swindon? Could you kind of use that as a little dry run to try something else? No, still the same. Granted, he was right. We won 5-0 at Canton. It could have been another 7 or 8. It was so easy. We haven't seen a game like that at the SCL in years. It was literally, boys against toddlers. But yeah, he does need to find a way to adapt. I mean, most of us are crying out for, at least 3 in midfield, where, one of them being Charlie Savage can't be on his own next to Sam Hutchinson, because
he's not got the mobility.
Yeah, he hasn't got a mobility, and Savage isn't strong enough yet. He's got the technical ability, but he hasn't got the room to move. And at the moment, we're just bypassing midfield anyway, and we're losing second balls, so we don't have the ball long enough. I mean, as a case in point, Harvey Nibbs, he scored a hat-trick last night. The weekend, he had 1 pass completed. So that shows a disparity. It's like, the younger kids, they can do it, they can adapt, they're fine, but that's against an age group that is representative.
Of course,
when you're playing against the big boys in League One who are established and know that league inside out, it's hard for them. It's hard. I mean, we've beaten Stevenage and we've beaten Bolton, so we know we can do it. But away from home, we've got this disastrous record where we haven't won in nearly a year now. 6 points out of.
Was it Hull the last away game you won? Something along those lines?
Yeah, correct. We've pretty much fluked that one as well. So, and with all the other aspects as well with the club, that no one's in a good mood, generally speaking. So, going out on the pitch, there's a massive amount of pressure to perform with the system that is new, with the environment of an owner that doesn't exist, whether they're going to get paid or not. It's just an absolute cumulative mess on every level. And when you've got kids that don't know or don't earn that much, to they're probably living hand to mouth for a lot of. It's not like established players like Lewis Swing
or for the staff. Like, what about the staff as well, Neill?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got that stress, and to go out on the field where you've got fans on one hand that want to do right by the players and support them, but when you're getting stuffed week after week away from home, and our support away from home is fantastic. We take a good 1,000 odd wherever we go at the moment, and when that's not rewarded, it's a real double-edged thing of like, the support needs to be there, but on the other hand, they're so frustrated because we feel we should be doing better than this. And you got to take everything into consideration, and it's hard at some points to switch off from that. And you can see that some things, on a bare football level, just don't work. And so we got to do better than this somehow. And it's difficult to know when that turning point is going to be. And, we're in the relegation zone already, and we might have more points taken off us or administration. So that's automatically League Two. We know that.
Of course.
And there's just no bright side. There's just no bright side at the minute.
I mean, I suppose that preempts my next question. I was wondering if there were any, individual players that have been able to stand out. I know Caelan Vickers was one people were mentioning a few weeks ago. Have there been any bright spots for the team, or any players you can come away with some credit?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few, as you say. Vickers is outstanding. I mean, he's going to get snaffled up in a couple of years' time, if not before. Obviously, Big Kelvin up front. He's a bit of a confident striker, it seems. Who else have we got? Michael Craig, who was played in midfield last night, former Spurs graduate. He's been very good. Tivong Rashesha, alongside him from Swansea. They've got a lovely little partnership flourishing there.
Hopefully that could come into the league then to see what they can do.
It could do, but you can't play them as a two, I don't think.
So maybe those two and Savage coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Or a wing in there, Lewis Wing. He's fit.
No, I really like Lewis Wing. Actually, he had a really good season last year at Wickham. So So there's
it's just finding a way to accommodate them into a system that Sellers likes and does what he wants. And you wonder when that tipping point's going to be of he's got to sacrifice his own philosophy for survival at some point, because if your midfield's being overrun week in, week out, you're not going to win games just by luck and penalties and dodgy refereeing decisions. You need far more than that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, hopefully Ruben Sellers can switch things around a little bit, and then fingers crossed for some sort of change of fortunes off the field and new ownership, because it's what the club's crying out for. But it's been great to get your insight on it, Neill, and thanks a lot for joining us.
No, anytime.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Neill Rees from the Tilehurst end speaking there. Delighted to bring in our regular Matt Farley from the Stevenage Football Club Podcast to lighten the mood a little bit. A bit of a contrast there. You seem very happy tonight, Matt.
That's a silly question, Gav. I'm always happy. How are you, gentlemen? All good?
Yeah, we're great, thanks. Just as a Stevenage fan right now, Matt, obviously you've had an amazing start to the season, flying high in fourth, and then a 1-0 victory over Wigan Athletic last time out. Has the start to the season, you're obviously 46% of the way to 46 points, which was what was enough to stay up last season. Are you changing your targets in any way based on the start to the campaign?
Yeah, I mean, I think still originally, I think the goal for a lot of us at the football club is to get to near that 50-point mark and stay up. But I think, now that we're on 21, it's looking more like we're going to do that. I mean, if we beat Blackpool Saturday, we'll have pretty much half of what you need to stay up, 24 points pretty much. So we're halfway there. So all the roads are leading to us, hopefully, getting to 50 points. I think to get to that exact point, I think we need, it's like 29 points from, I think, about 105 left. So when you look at it like that, it's looking really good. But look, Gab, Jake, I'm buzzing, mate. It's great to see us up the top, and we lost a couple of games, and everyone went, "Oh no, is this the turn of everything?" And the boys rallied on Saturday, got a good 1-0 win. Really weird game, but pretty solid 1-0 win, and look, back on track. 21 points on the board and fourth place. Look, we're buzzing.
Talk to me about Aaron Presley then, Matt. The press.
What, the press? The press.
The press, sorry.
I could talk to you about the press, no problem.
Just listen to his podcast, Gav. He's all on there. If you listen to his podcast this week, which I did on my drive to work this morning, it's all about the press. If you want to go listen, that's Stevenage Football Club Podcast. Go and follow it.
Listen, the press we're making the press a celebrity, okay? So the press, it's really weird, right? So we joked around with the press. So the reason for it is a bit of dialogue to the story. But there's always been one player in the Stevenage teams over the last 5 years I've had a nickname for, right? So Luke Prosser, it was the Pross. Aaron Prishbeck, it was...
He was called Pro sometimes at Southend as well.
Was it? Oh, interesting. Interesting, I didn't know that. Well, then Adam Prisbeck last year we called the Priz. So when Aaron Presley signed, I immediately went, "We've got to be the Press." Right, so we've made the name a thing, right, to the point where I even know a few fans at the club, some that don't listen to podcasts, etc. They don't listen to ours, and even there, calling him the Press. It's like we've made the name of the Press. Like I even saw, it was like a journalist, I can't remember who it was, on Twitter, an EFL person doing a thing, mentioned the Press, and we were just like, it's ridiculous. I mean, on Jake and Napper's his thing, that was one of the first things. One of the first weeks of the season where Jake went, the Press, and I was like, no, we've made it a thing. So yeah, look, the Press, he's doing great. He's do you know what I think the big thing about him is, and he spent about a few weeks out with injury, is when we first signed him, a lot of people said, he hasn't been up the top of League One, he's played for Accrington. All right, he did actually all right for Accrington in terms of where they were, but he's very vital to the way we actually play. And when the Press wasn't playing for a few weeks, I know obviously Reedy's been scoring, but you could see that we've missed somewhat of a target man up top. And he came back the Press and came on against Oxford and was great. And then he played at Bolton. He was like the best player on the pitch for the first 45 minutes. We were like, whoa, what is this? And then Wigan Saturday, he was one of the best players on the pitch again. So I think we've actually seen how vital the Press is to the way that we want to play, really.
The press to the press.
The press to press. That's it. Literally.
Love it. Because that's the thing that really stands out to me about this Borough side, Matt. There was a lovely passage of play, I think, against Wigan where, Jordan Roberts really competing for a ball in the middle third, and then he sort of he won it and made a run onwards, and then you had Jake Forster-Caskey stepping onto it, and I just love that balance of players who are really aggressive and winning the first and seconds, and then players who can make the most of that with their technical ability. And I think it might have been the lead up to the goal, actually. Forster-Caskey just put a ball in, and it just seems like it's really clicking at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's that original style that we originally had that Steve, brought to the club and played last year. And I think I said to you at the start of the season, Gab, that it's really simple what we've done. It's the same style, just played by better players, basically. So in turn, you're going to get a better style of the original one that we played. And that's it in a nutshell, really. And I think the one thing that we'll always do really well is we'll always do the really ugly things really well. So win your headers, win your second balls, as you've said, we do that great. So, that's part of the style. We're very direct. We get the ball forward quickly. If you go and have a look at the possession stats, we'll be down the bottom for them. But that's our style. We're direct. We get the ball in the final third. And then when we get the ball in the final third, then you've got your Jordan Roberts with the quality. You've got your Jake Forster-Caskeys, your Louis Thompsons if they're up there, and your other players that can create and be effective in the final third. So yeah, look, it's our style. It works. I think the one thing is it's very unique for this division. I think when I come up to League One, I thought of really good football on the deck, really quick football, a lot quicker than the league below. And I think the way that we play, it's very unique. Not a lot of teams are used to playing that or against that style of football. So that's where I think we fall into that kind of niche bracket in the division. And because of that, we're seeming to get results. I think the one thing that I'm really happy with, actually, is, and I was saying this to the guys the other day, if you look at the wins that we've had, and to be honest with you, in the opening 12 matches, we knew that we were going to play probably a lot of the teams that were down there. We've only played, I think it's 3 of the top 6 or 7 at the minute. But what I'm really impressed with, when you look at the wins that we've got, and we've got exactly half, 6 and 12, they're against a lot of the teams down the bottom. So it's good to kind of know that we're hopefully not going to be part of that pack, and we're beating those teams and we look a little bit of a step above. So that's really positive. So yeah, look, it's going well. The style works. The players have bought into it. The original players we had are good enough for the division, which I think is something you really want to tick off as a team coming up. You want to make sure that those players are confident and comfortable playing the level above. All of them look that. And look, the original players we all got at the start of the season are all kind of League One players that have been doing it for many years, like your Nathan Thompsons, etc. So yeah, it's looking great. And yeah, we're just enjoying it at the minute, my man. Yeah,
for sure. Jake, what have you made of Stevenage's start to the season?
Go on, Jake.
Well, you know what, and obviously as a regular listener to Matt's pod, it's very hard not to be positive about Stevenage this year. You always know under Steve Evans what sort of football you're going to get. We saw it at Gillingham when they played into Verdane Oliver. You see it at Peterborough when he played into Ivan Toney and got players around him. And he's doing the same with Presley and the quality of the player. They've got Jordan Roberts. Jordan Roberts came to us the year we won League Two. Couldn't get in that team. I don't know how we couldn't get into that team, but he's clearly given extra responsibility. He's clearly done very well. And they've signed players like Louis Thompson, Ben Thompson, Nathan Thompson. All of those have played at the top end of this league. And I think their experience and they're helping the younger ones through, like Harvey White, like Charlie McNeil, and the really good calibre of young players that they've got in the group as well. So I've been really impressed. They've played some very good football. They've won at grounds where you necessarily wouldn't have thought they would go to and win. I mean, I watched the extended highlights back at Bolton. I thought they were excellent. I thought they probably deserved something from that game, and we're very unfortunate. If Stevenage would have got the Bolton that Carlisle got, I think Stevenage would have beaten 4-0, 5-0. That's the sort of performance they put in. So. Yeah, it's hard not to be impressed, Gab. They're fourth after 12 games. You say it's 12 to 15 games when the table starts to shape up, and they're still up there. So you have to give them enough credit. So no, it's hard not to be impressed. It really is. And as much as I dislike Steve Evans, he's doing a really, really good job from when he picked up that football club and taken them to where they are now. He has done probably one of the best jobs in the EFL. I don't think it can be underestimated.
Certainly not. I'm delighted to introduce Adam Parks from the Lowdown podcast. Good evening to you, Adam. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. You?
Yeah, great to have you on. Obviously representing Leyton Orient. I suppose we've just been talking about Stevenage and how well they've adjusted to life in League One with their excellent recruitment. I think it's fair to say Orient summer was maybe a little bit more hit and miss. How do you? It's been a reasonable start, I think it's fair to say. How do you sort of reflect on things so far?
I think it's fine margins, isn't it? I did make a bold prediction that we'd be 6 places ahead of Stevenage at the end of the season. I've got to back that up. I've got to carry on with that. Sorry, Matt, but you'll probably do us, but especially after your start. But I don't know. I think there's a couple of games that we really should have got, either 1 point or 3 points from, especially the Fleetwood game, which we could have had a really good run going. And unfortunately, last Tuesday we don't know where that stands in terms of the football. But that's not important at the moment. I honestly think where we are at the moment is where I said we'd go. I said 16th, didn't I? So, you can't argue with how we started. I think we played some good football. I don't think everyone's firing on full cylinders yet. And we've got Danajay to come back in January. So I think there's a lot of positives about what's happened so far. Even if some fans or even some commentators would like to say different.
Yeah. Well, first of all, the sound quality hasn't been great. I'm just wondering if it's possible for you to maybe have a little fiddle around because we're getting a bit of hiss back and sort of extra noises. So if you could just have a little play around, and then I'm sure we'll come back to you. Jake, in terms of Leyton Orient, they've obviously started their 16th at the moment, which I think is where the O's would want to be at this stage. They've been largely competitive, I would suggest, performance-wise as well. What do you make of their chances of staying in League One this season?
Yeah, good. And I have seen them in person. Obviously, I was there that Tuesday night last week where, unfortunately, Derek lost his life. But I thought they were excellent that night, and I can only go on what I've seen in person. I thought they were really good that night. we gifted them a goal, and we probably should have scored a couple. But Max Sanders, I mean, whether it was because he was playing against us or not, and he felt a little bit hard done by, thought he was very good. Joe Pigott was good on the night. It was just a shame that they couldn't really top that performance off. But since, I was really impressed in the win against Reading. They've been in a lot of games, and also they've had a couple of moments where the opposition have been better than. I refer to the Portsmouth game where Pompey was just very clinical, and it was difficult for Orient. And then obviously, Farley's here. The Stevenage game as well, where there did seem to be a bit of a gulf in class. So I've been impressed with some of the players, certainly. Even Galbraith was someone I was really excited to see come into the division after rave reviews at Salford. I thought he's had a pretty good step up. Joe Pigott was, I think, quite underestimated at Portsmouth a little bit last season. I don't think, you look at the Joe Pigott that was at AFC Wimbledon, he was scoring, 20 goals a year. And I think he was used too sparingly under Cowley and under Mousinho. And I think if Pompey had used Pigott a lot more, they would have got a lot more out of him. And it looks to me like the Orient are using him effectively. He was very good again that night that we went down there. It's sort of how you expect a newly promoted team to get on. There are games where they've been in and they've played very well, like Saturday, like the Tuesday that's just gone. And there's also been moments where they've come up just against a better team who's probably more well drilled and stuff. You have to remember as well, they brought quite a couple of new faces in. You look down the spine of the team, you got Sanders, Pigott, Sol Bryn came in. They lost some very influential players as well. I understand they did bring a couple of back, like El Mazzani and stuff. But I've been really impressed with Leyton Orient. I think they've got one or two lessons to learn, but they've still got 35, 36, 34 games to go and learn those lessons. And if you're asking me, do I think Orient comfortably stay up on what they've done at the moment? I would probably lean towards yes, because of how impressive they have been in those moments.
For sure. Matt, from what you saw of Leyton Orient in League Two last season, is where they are right now about where you expected them to be?
Yeah, I thought they'd probably be where they are. If I'm completely honest, I thought they might be anywhere from 20th to about 15th. If I'm honest. I think actually before the start of the season, I think I said it on our pass. I was actually a little bit fearful for them actually, because when I looked at the recruitment, I think Pigott's a really good signing, but I didn't really feel like they made. How do I put it? I didn't really feel like they made enough League One signings for their squad, and it's not just them. I felt the same for Carlisle as well. Yeah. And I was a little bit fearful for them before the start of the season, to the point where I wasn't sure if they were going to be a team that was going to drop. But I think after the last month, I think they've shown actually that they've got more than enough probably to stay up. I think when you look at the teams down there as well, I think Leyton Orient are probably better than those sides. So I think they've got more than enough to stay up. And yeah, I think they'll be fine, to be honest with you. When you actually look at your squad and you look at your Pigotts and El Mazzani, there's some good players in there. And yeah, I just think with them, they just need to make sure that the home form is their bread and butter. I think when you come up to this league, it's the same for us, and sure it's the same for the other couple of promoted sides. You've got to make sure that the home form is really good, and that's where you pick up your points. I mean, when we played them in September, still really early in the season, so I think Jake said really about now you're going to start to see teams properly come into their form, find their shape in the division. So I know it was 3-0 when we played them, but it was still very early on. So, yeah, look, I think Leyton Orient will be fine. They've got enough there. They've got a good manager, and they've got a goal scorer up front who's capable of putting the ball in the back of the net. So, yeah, I think Leyton Orient will be fine. But, yeah, I think they'll, if I had to put a prediction together now, I think they'll finish near a position that they're in at the minute, yeah.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. I guess I'm really curious to ask you, Jake. I think we talked about this off air yesterday. Max Sanders playing on the right of a three-man attack behind the main striker. Not necessarily what you'd come to expect from Max Sanders, having been very much a central midfielder with Lincoln City. Did that surprise you a little bit?
Well, when I saw him lining up on Tuesday night wide right, I was thinking Richie Wellens has clearly got something wrong with him. But I thought Max was great. He was a good player for Lincoln, Gab. He came in at a very weird time. He came in the January of the year we were in the League One playoffs, and he struggled to get into a midfield that had Liam Bridcut and George Granton. And I think a lot of players would have done it. And from all admissions, he didn't really want to come up to Lincoln. He felt homesick when he first got on the train. So perhaps go into an environment like Leyton Orient where they're closer to home and stuff like that. But yeah, when he was at Lincoln, he was more part of a double pivot really with Bridcut or Sorensen or Erahan that he played sort of last year. I thought he was very good when he tended to get forward. So when I saw him sort of lining up on a wide right, it was sort of like an inside forward on the right hand side sort of thing. And do you know what? Fair play to him, was great. And like I said, I don't know whether it was because he was playing against us and he wanted to prove a point to Mark Kennedy, who had released him. But I thought he got on the ball really well, had lots of nice touches, put a couple of balls into the box, had an opportunity that he probably should have scored that went over the bar. But no, he's a good player, Gab. He's a very good League One player, and Orient have certainly got a very good player. He's maybe not played as many minutes as he wanted for Orient as well. He's definitely one that will grow over the season. He's still, 25? He's got loads of time, and when he gets going, he was the long-term Liam Bridcut replacement, and unfortunately hasn't worked out. Leyton Orient can get him playing in that midfield with Satoru and El Mazzuni. I think Orient have got a very, very good midfield three there.
Well, that's really exciting. What's your take, Parksy, from the Orient perspective about Max Sanders playing out wide?
To be fair, hopefully the sound quality is better. Is that better?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for fiddling.
Sorry, we're in the process of moving house, so we haven't quite got the Wi-Fi fixed.
I'm glad you could prioritise us while you're moving out. So.
You know what I mean. Football always comes first. Max Sanders looked brilliant the last two games. He's not had the best start at the Orient. He was unwell during pre-season at the end of that, and he was on. He had a broken toe as well. He's obviously got a lot of qualities, but as it kind of sometimes happens, once you've got that little run of injuries or niggles, you're not fully up to speed. And I think that's a bit of a shame for him. I think he definitely was more dynamic than some of the other midfielders we've got, however good they are. He got around the pitch well. We really needed that player that went behind and beyond and made them runs from behind. We don't really have from midfield. And he was very positive. And it's just a shame that he's obviously come off with I believe Richie says a hamstring injury. We shall find out how bad that is.
For sure, yeah. Adam, I feel like we knew before the start of the season that Idris El Mazzuni would be crucial to Orient's chances of retaining their third-tier status. But I guess what's maybe caused us a little bit more surprise has been the form of Jordan Brown, who people have been quite impressed by. Can you talk to us about that midfield pairing?
What's surprising about it? Jordan Brown was someone.
I wouldn't have considered Jordan Brown
last year. Jordan Brown is one of them players that has been let go by one of the bigger clubs that are in our level now that would get in their team. He's a good player. He's grown as year and year has gone by. Last year, we really, I think there was a stage when he was undroppable last year and he was dropped. He's just an excellent player. He can play in numerous positions and he has energy. He has vision. He has drive and, he gets it. And he's becoming a bit of a leader as well. So in a team that we would probably have said maybe a year ago had one or two leaders in Pratley and Beckles, the like, we've now got a team of maybe 4 or 5 leaders, which really does bode well for the future. Jordan Brown is one to watch. He will be a championship footballer at worst. He's got great skill, great vision, and he's got great first touch on the ball as well. So I think under Richie Wellens or under any tutelage like Richie Wellens, he will flourish.
Well, that's really exciting, and I suppose I'm just kind of looking theoretically at the starting lineup for the side that beat Reading 2-1, and I look at it, and Rob Hunt's obviously a right back that likes to kind of drift into those midfield spaces. Ed Turns is a centre back by trade, playing left back. You've got a converted midfielder before he got that ACL, but even he was replaced by George Moncur, who also likes to operate centrally. So the only real, in sort of the way I envisage it, Adam, and tell me if I'm completely wrong, the only real player that you'd expect to provide width in that setup is Theo Archibald. Is there the danger that if you sort of nullify Archibald, then Orient become a bit narrow, possibly?
Well, no, because you've always got, it's very fluid. That's the one thing I will say about the way that we're playing right now. It's very fluid. We've got some players that like to drift out wide. We have Jordan Graham on the bench of that game, but he'd started a lot of games. Who's excellent. Like for League One, he's an excellent player. He can play as a wing back. He can play as a winger. His quality on the ball, his crossing is immense. So I think what Richie's done in the last few weeks has kind of nullified some of the threat of someone like George Moncur, for example, because of that fluidity. Theo Archibald has been excellent this season. If you were going to press me on who the best player we've had this season or player of the year so far, it will probably be Theo.
I wouldn't have guessed that before the season as well. I would have thought Theo Archibald was decent last season, but I wouldn't have said he was.
I think that's another thing that comes off of, he came from League One. Lincoln didn't fancy him at that time. And I suppose it's just in the environment that you're in. And maybe he's been driven by a manager that gets him as a person, because sometimes it's not about skill. He's got passion. He's got a bit like Jordan Brown. He's got points to prove. And it's he's definitely a good player. I think we've got a lot more options than it looks like on paper. If we can get to January when Dan Ajayi hopefully will be up to speed to come back into the team, we have a very fluid front five or four, whichever system we use. And the shift to three at the back is kind of made it a four. But we did play a few games with three at the back with two up top with Sotirio and Piggott. So I think the system affects a lot of players, Gab. I think, Theo is restrained at wing back. As a winger, he isn't, but he's still creative at both. And he's still learning the wing back position. Remember this, and he's pretty good at it. So with players around him like Graham, who's had to, become a utility player at different clubs, he's got people around him that can guide him in the right direction. And with Richie Wellens, he will only pick a team tactically that he feels that the players will benefit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I suppose when you're talking about wing backs there, it was listed on BBC as a 4-2-3-1, but maybe come to think about it, it was actually Hunt as a wing back and then Archibald as left wing back.
Well, I think what you do is in that system is if you play Jordan Graham, say on the right hand side, or Archibald, which is his one, or James, they become a four, don't they? So when one goes forward, they go across and then they become a four. Or there's the three at the back that stay, and the left wing back goes when the right wing back goes, and they've got someone at the back post. I think it's quite a malleable tactical decision by Richie, and I think it's something that I called for last season, even when we were top of the league. I really fancied us to play 3-5-2 or an equivalence of it, because that's what's happened in the Premier League, but the players that we had. Ed Turns last year, he's good on the ball. He's obviously come from a Premier League academy, and he's evolved as well. So he's moving more into midfield with the ball, as well as Dan Happy, as well as Brandon Cooper, who has been a revelation, by the way.
Hunt does that really well, I think, as well sometimes. So so having that kind of ball playing centre backs all across the back three. I don't feel nervous with them. I do with Omar Beckles. I'm not being negative about the guy. He turned his form round this season, and getting injured at the wrong time, I feel. He was really playing well. But I think that the ball-playing nature of our team is now starting to show. And I think that if obviously Tuesday night, we don't know what's going to happen with those points, but let's just take the emotion out of it for a second and say we do get the 3 points, then we're ninth. And it kind of, is it a false position?
from the people we've played, probably not. Portsmouth and Stevenage have been the two teams that have turned us over. And, Stevenage are up there, but they would only be 4 points ahead of us. And Portsmouth, well, they're head and shoulders, aren't they? So there are going to be teams that do it again. It's going to be inconsistent. We obviously know that. There are going to be games where we beat teams or we go on little mini runs and then we get thumped. It's just going up a level. I would be disappointed with 16th now.
Really?
Yes, I'd say 12th would be somewhere above that. That's just from looking at who we've played and how we've played.
You're an expensive date, aren't you?
Yes, I am. I'd like to have dessert as well. Thank you, Gab. Maybe a limoncello as well, just to finish it off. To cleanse the palate. It's definitely. I don't fear the division as much as I did from the first 3 games.
No, I do understand that side of it. I definitely think the league is weaker. I can understand that you'd sense an opportunity, but also I think there's an element of it is your first season up, and it is about sort of consolidating, and certainly from that point of view, you're well on your way. But lovely stuff on the Lowdown podcast, Adam. Thanks for joining us, and good luck with the move, mate.
Thank you very much, and good luck to everyone else.
Cheers. Delighted to bring in our next guest, which is Tim Stoodley from the Yellow Block. I need to get my words out today. Yellow Block podcast of Peterborough United. How are you, Tim?
Good evening, fellas. I'm good. Gab, how are you, mate? Long time no speak. How are we doing?
Yeah, we're great. Just want to talk to you about how you're feeling. Jake's a little put out because you beat Lincoln.
He's scared now. Look at him.
Oh, we should have beaten them, man.
Little bit fortuitous, that result, would you say?
I wouldn't say so. I don't know what game you were watching, Jake. I wouldn't say that was lucky at all. I feel like that was an attacking masterclass.
I think we should have been 2 or 3 up at half time.
No, I don't know. I disagree. I mean, maybe it's fan bias, perhaps, but no, I feel it was probably we were good for the 3 points across the 90 minutes. Personally, I'm normally quite pessimistic, so I'm happy to admit when we've not played well or we get something we don't deserve. But no, I think on this occasion, I think we did deserve the 3 points against Lincoln. But
by the way, I love the way that Gab has just slowly declined backwards like that. Have you noticed that? He's like, you know, I'm just going to let these 2 go. Give myself a break. I'll slide back a bit.
Yeah, so just setting the firework off and then letting it happen.
Or set the pyro off more like.
Round 1.
But Jake, I mean, I suppose you'd say Lincoln did create a lot of chances in the first half. I think the XG for that game, I don't know whether Tim's one for XG, but at that point, I think it was 0.18 for Peterborough and 2.1 for Lincoln, which suggests based on the quality of chances created with better finishing, Lincoln didn't have a centre forward on the occasion. Lincoln could have been 2 up, so...
Yeah, always a fan. Always a fan of XG. Sorry, Jake, I'm a fan of XG, but ultimately it's that result at the end of 90 minutes, right?
Yeah, and he would say that, wouldn't he? Yeah, it would. But no, there was a spell I think from 30 minutes to 45 where it was all one. I wouldn't say it was one-way traffic, but we were certainly the dominant team after 30 minutes to half time. Half time came at the wrong time for Lincoln, and then the second half. I don't know what Mark said or what Fergie must have said something really, really positive, and Posh came out the blocks and scored twice, admittedly from 2 really poor mistakes. But I feel like we certainly should have been maybe one or 2 goals by half time. But that's football. That's London Road. We don't get a result at London Road, and when we do, they dive and win.
I knew that was coming. I knew that was coming. They dive. Surprised it didn't take you that long.
Sometimes you just got to leave them to it, But not bitter. But no, they were okay. People were. I was really impressed with Randall. Randall was the one Posh player that I thought, you know what, you've clearly got something about you. I was impressed with Adji Boy as well.
Tim, if only there was someone who was talking up Joel Randall's prospects before the season and hadn't given up on him 18 months into his Peterborough career. I don't know where I would find someone like that. But...
Yeah, so, I mean, it would be unfair to say you're welcome to Randall, Jake, but that was his standout performance in a Posh shirt in the 2 years or so that he's been with us. I mean, look, the thing with Joel Randall is he came with a huge reputation, really struggled to settle, had a really rough first 12 months, was kind of forced to be the sort of poster boy this campaign. And the whole fan base wants him to do well. He's a likable character. He's just one of them players that we've invested a lot of money in. So obviously we want him to do well. And he has struggled. And it was a relief for him. You could see it on his face. It was a relief for the fan base, the fact that he played so well against Lincoln. And hopefully now it's the start of things to come, because, ultimately it was a £1 million investment. So sure. In the nicest possible way, we would expect more than a goal against Lincoln to show for that. And hopefully now we can start to see that momentum a little bit.
Yeah, hopefully it's going to build his confidence, because I think part of the challenges that he had was obviously had some injury issues to overcome, and also I suppose because Posh previously had other good players, I would suggest, in his position, it's been difficult for him to find some momentum. Whereas I guess this season he's got a clearer run at it with some of the departures. So hopefully that plays into his favour. But those wide positions do look like an area of strength for Posh at the moment, don't they?
They do, although ironically, it feels as though there's also weaknesses up there too. I mean, I know we spoke in the summer, Gab, about this year sort of having relatively low expectations and how we were going into this, perhaps different to other seasons. That wide area is where all our young, exciting talent sits at the moment. And so, yeah, absolutely, on the day could easily be the best wide players in the league, but it's that consistency I think that we're still lacking. The likes of Ricky J. Jones, who we know can be a great player on his day. He tore Man City apart in the FA Cup, but then he'll go 5-6 games where he just doesn't turn up. And it's similar with Randall. Ajiboye, we mentioned, played well against Lincoln, but again, we've not really seen enough of him yet. Mason Clark is now obviously suffering with injuries as well. And then you've got Poku as well, who has maybe not had the greatest start to the season in comparison to last year. So there's still a lot of inconsistency there. It kind of feels like Fergie's still trying to work out who his best wide players are. But hopefully, it feels like we're about to. I mean, we're 6 unbeaten, so you could say we're already on a run. But it does feel like we're about to go. It feels like we're about to go on a really good run. I feel like somebody is about to be on the end of a pasting from us, and I'm looking at Wigan
on the other hand,
and hoping it's them.
Tim. Yeah, let's hope that's the case. But do you feel like there's a lack of experience in certain areas on the backdrop of Darren McAntee and Darren Ferguson being so tied on this idea of we'll go young and hungry this season? But you do wonder if at individual moments, Posh, you're just missing a bit of organisational qualities, that whether you've necessarily got that, I suppose you'd question.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that was there last year too. We threw away a 4-goal lead in the playoff semis. So it's, there was that bottle job mentality there as well. And that's carried on into this season. And Fergie came out after we got knocked out by Mansfield in the Cup and said the exact same thing. This is a team of bottle jobs. Was quite a bold statement. He since apologised for that. But he's right, ultimately. There is a mentality issue there. I don't know if it's an experience thing. I think it's just a mentality issue. But it was nice to see against Lincoln and also against Bristol Rovers the week before how we did dig deep. And when we went 1-up against Lincoln a couple of weeks ago, that would have then been a game we would have gone on to lose because we just seemed to give up or down tools after scoring 1. So it was nice to go on and get that clean sheet and remain professional through the second half. So, yeah, there is potentially a mentality and experience issue there, but you're going to get that ultimately with young players, I guess.
Jake, I can't help feeling that I'm not sure we've necessarily seen Peterborough at their best yet, and yet they're 5th with 21 points from their first 12 games. And I'm just wondering, do you think that's a little bit reflective of the league to a certain extent, where it has been weakened over the last couple of seasons, and certainly this year we've lost Ipswich, Sheffield Wednesday, Plymouth Argyle won the league last season, and some of the sides like Barnsley and Bolton haven't necessarily been that great either. Do you feel like that's opened it up a bit for sides like Peterborough to compete, even with a squad that's certainly weaker than last season?
Yeah, I mean, if we've not seen the best of Posh just yet, then, to say they're 6th and that they've had a bit of an iffy start to the season, then they've got to be considered one of the top players for those automatic positions, because this squad, and I know sort of Tim said there are clear weaknesses, but if this squad are playing to their full potential, which, you know, if you get the likes of Addy Boy and Kiprianu and all these lot playing consistently week in, week out, making performances, sometimes you don't have to be great to win. And if they can keep doing that, then they're going to be up in the top six. Yes, it is a much weaker league, but you still got to think about they've still got Clark Harris in the building, who scored 26 league goals last season. Didn't really look at it on Saturday, but his head might be in another place. I don't know what's going on with him, but they still look a very good side when they want to be. And I think it's going to be a lot of onus on this Peterborough United side that they need to sense the opportunity that is there for them this year and consistently play well enough to take it, because they've got the talent. There's no denying that they've got the players to go and pull teams out of the water. Like Tim said, a team is due a pacing. Well,
pull teams out of the water rather than blow teams out of the water.
Or push them back in at the deep end. I don't know. But look, I tell you what, there's not many forward lines I think you'd rather if everyone is on Son than Peterborough United, put it that way. And I think they can get away with perhaps defensive frailties. I don't know. Or whatever his name is.
Jake there, unexpected.
That was the punchline, wasn't it? Missed the punchline.
Yeah, I didn't want to say his name, so I just turned my data off. Is it Bilakapovic in goal? I think he needs to grow into it a little bit more. But there were frailties at the back for Posh, and if they can outscore teams, which genuinely is the way with Peterborough United teams, then you've got to consider them as certainly a team that are going to finish in the upper echelons of the playoff positions. If they're maybe not an Oxford and Pompey level consistent yet, but certainly a team that should be aiming to look third, fourth. And I think they can do it. They've just got to put a consistent run together. And like Tim says, the 6 unbeaten at the moment. If they can turn that into 14, 15, then they're going to be dangerous, I think.
How are you feeling, Tim? More optimistic than you were than before the start of the season?
I don't know. It's weird, isn't it? I should be absolutely flying because our expectations were low. We all kind of predicted mid-table or worse amongst the fan base. This was all about rebuilding this season, and we've got talent. We're playing relatively well, and we're in the playoffs. So I should be absolutely buzzing, but I'm not, and I can't work out why. I don't know if it's because I've been burnt many times as a Posh fan, and I know that after Christmas we'll completely fall apart. It could be that we're still being fed this line of just temper your expectations, and we're fully aware that in January we're going to lose JCH and Ronnie Edwards. So maybe it's those factors. I don't know. But
to be fair, I'm not sure. Would you necessarily consider? I mean, I think as an asset, I would actually rather. I think Johnson Clark Harris on performances this season is replaceable, and I think that to get a good amount of money for Ronnie Edwards would probably end up being good for the club generally in terms of adding a bit more depth to the team and possibly having an active January anyway. So I'm not sure from a Posh perspective you'd be dreading those two players leaving if you're able to get the right money for them.
Yeah, I think with Ronnie Edwards, I am dreading the player leaving. Absolutely, we need the money, and he will go on to do what Ivan Toney's done in terms of feeding the club for the next few years financially. But as a defender, he would walk into any championship side already. So at this level, he's a cheat code at the back. Like Jake said, our defensive frailties get highlighted more because of how we play. So perhaps he doesn't always look as good as he is in a Posh squad. But there's no doubt about it that he is a sensational player, and the sky really is the limit for him. So it will be, as much as they'll be preparing for that, it's not a surprise that he's going to be going in January. Ultimately, whoever you do bring in has got big boots to fill. So, but I don't know why I'm so flat, really. I should be absolutely buzzing. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's a strange season. There's so much happening across all the leagues that's just odd. You've got, team sacking managers that are absolutely flying. Gillingham, I'm looking at you. It's just strange. It's just a weird season. The quality is weaker. So I don't know. I think altogether, I'm just feeling a little bit underwhelmed, and I shouldn't be. I've got absolutely no right to be. I should be on cloud nine, but for some reason, I'm just maybe tempered. Let's say that I'm not letting myself get carried away.
Okay. Well, yeah, we don't want to get too complacent, so I can understand that. Listen, hopefully, if you do cash in on those two big players in January, you are able to spend a bit, because clearly, although the form looks really good so far, considering up against what was expected, I think this is a squad that needs a bit of help as well. So hopefully that's forthcoming. Tim, thanks so much for your insight, and keep up the great work on the yellow block, mate.
No worries. Good to see you again, and have a nice evening all.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Delighted to. No, I'm not delighted. There's not another guest. I wanted to come over to Jake. Yeah, I wanted to come over to Jake to chat about Lincoln.
Delighted to have Jake on the He's been here for 60 minutes.
For him still to be on here.
He's been here for 60 minutes, but we're delighted to have him on.
Whenever I say goodbye to an old guest, I'm already on the mode of saying delighted to, and then what am I delighted for?
Gav's go-to.
Absolutely, yeah. Jake, how are you feeling as an imp right now? I think we've got to talk about that Ethan compound in midfield, right?
Oh, Gav, yes, we do. Yeah, I feel okay. I mean, what are we in the table? 14th at the minute. I think we're in a bit of a false. Obviously, we've technically played 2 games less than everyone, and if we play our games in hand, I think we can get to 21 after 12, which is what a certain team are on. Yeah.
Go on, the bar! Sorry, I had to get out. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I think we're not a million miles away, and like we said on the phone last night, Gab, because we video called, didn't we, whilst we were in bed. That sounds awful.
You so
yeah,
sorry, Gab. I don't get video calls. What have I been left out in the cold? I have.
We were discussing. I had a bit of a dilemma for Gab to help me with, and maybe we can get Farley's opinion after the pod. And then Gab just pressed the video call button. I was like, Gab's in bed.
Okay. So let's get back to the football then.
Sorry. Sorry, Gab. Yes. Yeah.
Ethan Erahon.
Ethan Erahon or Ethan Hamilton, take your pick. But yeah, I think if we can stay in touch, Gab, like we said last night, if we can stay in touch when we have these strikers back fit, like we have Ben House and we have Tyler Walker to fit from, we have Jack Moylan to pick from, we've got Jack Vale. Sorry, I don't know who he is. I don't know if he's any good or not because we've not seen him yet. But
apparently he's supposed to be back quite soon.
He's meant to be close, yeah. He's meant to be very close. And whether we see him on Saturday or this week, I don't know. But yeah, I feel positive that the whole team are playing pretty well. Jensen's had a good start in goal. I think he's had a fantastic start. The back line, yes, we lost Regan Poole in the summer, who's the best defender in the league, by the way. And I don't think you can tell that we've lost him because we've got the continuity of Rowan, O'Connor, Jackson, who all played 40 games last season each, and then the Ethan compound in midfield. I said to you, didn't I, last night? I don't think there's all the teams that play 2 in midfield. I think you'd struggle to find a better 2.
It's a tough one, isn't it? I probably wouldn't argue with it because I think, like we've mentioned, there's. I suppose for me, the one I would bring up would be Cameron Brannigan and Marcus McGuate at Oxford. I think those 2 are really good. I would maybe say they're a slight level above, mainly just because they've been doing it for longer as well at this level. So I'd probably give those the edge. But certainly I think Hamilton and Erahon just complement each other so well. Yeah. And Jake, what I'm so excited for Lincoln City once the striker situation does change is you've got this lovely blend of the kind of solidity of players that, like you said, played 40 plus games last season and have got that synergy and understanding, and those are really strong foundations. Then you've got a couple of the midfielders that you've recruited really well in the last couple of the windows. And then I think if you can just add that last bit in the final third, where whether it's, I think we've pretty much established now Freddie Draper isn't getting recalled in January. I keep saying, you've got to recall Freddie Draper in January, and I keep... No, I think the striker situation is probably going to change by then. So hopefully you can have a really good season at Walsall. But I think that's really where Lincoln City's season lies. And if you can solve the striker conundrum earlier rather than later, then I think you can certainly establish yourselves as a top 10 side at this level and maybe even flirt with those playoffs.
Yeah, I think top 6 would probably be the aim. If we can get everyone fit and fit for a start, if we can play with an actual striker, because you watch us in recent week, Gavs, and we've been playing the same system just without a striker. So we've had Rico Hackett's played up there as a 9. Hakeem Delican's played there up there as a 9.
I prefer Hackett there to Hakeem.
I'm hoping, especially now after we've brought Mide Shadipo back, I'm hoping Saturday is a front 3 of Mide on the right, Danny Mandroyo on the left, and Rico Hackett down the middle.
Oh yeah, Mandroyo is back. I think that's going to make a difference.
Mandroyo is back, baby. He is such he's such a player.
Love it.
I mean, you've seen in games that we've had this year against Blackpool, best player on the pitch, against Wycombe, best player on the pitch. Yes, he was bad on Saturday, but flair players. I don't think you want to take that out of flair players, because they're looking. I said this to you as an excuse for why he gave the ball away and Posh scored. He's looking for that really obscure pass that no one else has seen. I don't think you can take that away from your flair players, because if you do, you're teaching them to be a robot and just to play square balls, and you don't get the best out of them. So, look, I'm positive. I think we've got plenty of reasons to be positive. We've got players out on loan performing really well. Like I said to you, with all the recruitment teams in League One, if they're looking for a striker that's scoring in League Two, Freddie Draper's on the list, and he's our player. Once we can get that top third sorted and consistent, I mean, ideally it's going to be Ben House, because he knows the system inside out. He's a pressing machine.
You say the press?
He's our press.
He's your press, is he?
He's our press. It's really exciting, and the likes of Jack Moylan to come in, and Oisin Gallagher, and Ali Smith as well, who had a really good year in League Two. He's only just not really featuring a lot. You've got TJ Omer, and we've got Lewis Monkswood to come back in and play some beautiful diagonals to Danny Mandroyo and Rico Hackett. So I'm really excited. There's lots of reasons to be positive as a Lincoln fan. I know the table might not suggest it, considering where we're trying to get to at the moment, but I think, like you say, say if we can stay 5-6 points behind the top 6 by January, I think there's a case for us to be that team that run in at the end. But
I can't argue with that. Certainly on the right track. I'm going to come to some predictions now, because we do rotate our regulars. So, in terms of the top 6, then, Jake, you've been talking about possibly Portsmouth and Oxford being the 2 standout sides, Peterborough being kind of 3rd or 4th, and I kind of imagine you'd probably put Bolton in that bracket as well. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you for a team to finish 5th and 6th then.
He's watching me. And as much as I love Farley, I'm not going to put Stevens. But I think look, Farley. I think if you finish anywhere between 12 and 12, I think if you finish 12, even after your start, you've had an exceptional season. I think you should be buzzing for 12.
I would have taken 20th.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
My others, I think I'm going to throw Barnsley in there, Gab. I've been impressed with Barnsley recent weeks. They've just come off a 9-point week. I think they battered Cambridge 4-0, and then they backed it up at Exeter. So I've been really impressed with them. I can't put Lincoln in because that would show a lot of bias. I'm thinking maybe Wycombe.
Yeah, so I would have actually gone Wycombe over Barnsley. I've been more impressed with them. I also think that Derby would also get into my top 6 because of the quality they've got, because I either think Paul Warne's going to get it right, or I think that their change manager and someone else.
Yeah, I just don't think he's the right man, Gab, and I just don't think as good as a gaffer Paul Warne is, I just don't think he suits Derby. I think if Paul Warne would be better suited to the Wickham job than he would to the Derby job.
Do you know what? I'm a little bit, not I say disappointed in Derby, but I expected more. Does that make sense? So I mean, like, when we come into the league, like you had like your visions of who were going to be up there. And I look at Derby and I know they're, getting in the top half. They're probably going to be at the end of the season, but I expected more from Derby. I thought they'd be right up there with your Portsmouths and your Oxfords to start. So the fact that they're not and they're down a bit, I'm a little bit, I thought they'd be up there.
Personally, I think Derby finished fourth because I do expect them to go strong, but I think I don't see them getting into the top two. I think they've sort of left themselves too much to do. So for me, I would say Portsmouth and Bolton, which was my top two before the start of the season.
Go on, Gav.
Yeah, I am.
I said, Jake, don't worry about it. Last year, predicted us to finish, what was it, 15th? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Yeah, don't worry about it. I love the way, by the way, Gav, for the predictions this season, I love the way you put us, what was it, 12th? I was like, he's done that just to make sure that he doesn't, get it a double wrong for a double season. Because my prediction for us was 10th. So when I see Gav say 12th, I was like, what? Gab's put us that high? I was like, yeah, we know what he's doing.
We put us in the top 6, Farley, and I bet he's regretting that now.
Oh, God.
Or is it?
Do you know what? I'm actually. I still think Lincoln could finish in the top 6.
Go on, Gab. Go on.
I mean, Jake. Look, I'm going to be honest with you, Matt. I think our two teams are getting promoted automatically. I'm just throwing it out there, right? Just vision this, right? We're doing one of these EFL debates, and we've got Birmingham, Lincoln, and Stevenage in the same league. There you go, Gab. And you know what? We're going to look back in the year and go, bloody hell, do you remember when we did the EFL debate on the 12th of October and we all said this would happen, or whenever it is? Tell ya, seen it happen before.
Yeah, Wayne Rooney's coming to the Lamex. So we'll see. So that would be really interesting to see who gets into them. Do you know what? I'm not convinced Barnsley get into the top 6. I've actually been quite underwhelmed by them so far. So I think, and yes, probably same with Peterborough. So I think there's probably some question marks.
My caveat for Barnsley, and I'm sorry to run into you. Last year they just got better and better. I think this year they've started.
They've not got Michael Duff now, though.
Yes, I know. I appreciate that, but they've still got a large group of that team. Still, I know you're missing core members like Kitchen. But they kept Lewis Connell. That's a massive. They've got Devante Cole's who's on 9 goals already this year. And they've added pretty smartly. Max Waters was a good signing. Barry Cotter's chipped in with a few goals as well. So I that would be my argument. I think Barnsley will get better, and under Collins, I think eventually I trust them enough to get better more than I trust Paul Warne to coach this Derby side.
So I think there's probably question marks over both Neill Collins and Paul Warne, but I think Derby have the squad depth and the individual quality to kind of overcome those. Whereas I think Barnsley have kind of got by through Devante Cole's goals. They've had certain circumstances where they've played sides who just haven't turned up, or they've sort of won games where they've beaten like the weaker teams, and actually against the the stronger teams, they've kind of been found wanting a bit. So I'm played Wigan when they had 10 men for 80 minutes. So I'm kind of I'm not really feeling Barnsley, even though they're in a good position. Whereas I do feel very strongly that Bolton could win 8-10 games in a row at some stage this season. I think Derby get into the playoffs. I think Wickham get in, and then I think probably there's question marks for me over Barnsley and Peterborough. Well, I think we've just about run out of time on this EFL Debate League One podcast. It's been so lovely to have you both on to join me for the duration as well. My thanks to Jake Tonge from the excellent Channel 72 and that League One podcast, and to Matt Farley from the Stevenage Football Club podcast. Thanks to you for watching at home. Thanks to all our guests tonight, and we'll see you again very soon.